Hi and welcome to another one of my gunsmithing videos. Now today we're looking at a high standard Supermatic Citation, one of these military grip high standards. Now the problem with this pistol is that it's missing its ejector. Now this is a problem looking on the net. I've seen reference in forums quite a few times to this. If you look at that hole there, see that round hole there? That's actually where the ejector goes. Now the ejector, presumably at the factory, is just pressed in. That hole is just about exactly 1/8 of an inch in diameter. I presume at the factory the ejectors were just a slight interference fit and they were just pressed in, and that's where they sat. Now apparently what can happen is, for whatever reason, maybe just the tolerances weren't quite correct and it was a bit loose or something, they can just fall out, and usually if you're at the range, and most people don't even notice, the pistols just starts playing up, and then they realize it doesn't have an ejector and it's lost in the ground, and they're a part that's not available. I've exhausted all avenues. Even in the US, people can't get new ejectors for them. There is some reference. You can just sort of screw a screw in there and file it to shape, and it will kind of work. It sounded a little bit rough to me, so I sort of decided, right, I'm going to have a go at actually making a new ejector for this. So I'm not going to go through the process of actually showing you me making it, because it's extremely tedious. Now, a very helpful person on the Rimfire forum actually sent me his engineering drawings. Apparently there's 4 different shapes, well, three. That's all 3 of them all on top of each other. There's 3 different shapes of ejector, depending on which model you've got. This one I think is an early 70s model, so, but yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what the original ejector was, because I've been just asked to fix this pistol for someone. So I'm just kind of basically using this as a general guide, but making an ejector that just works. Now I've already had one go. Now where is it? There it is, down there. As you can see, my workbench is as tidy as it normally is. That was my first go there. So that's pretty much the shape it's going to be. But I mucked this one up. It has to be very carefully hand fitted, because it has to be, it's so small. It rides in, I'll show you in a minute where it actually goes. But I'll just give you, in case you want to go through this project yourself, I'll just give you a few pointers on what I've learnt while I've been mucking around with this. Now, if you look at that hole there, as I said, it's 1/8 inch. Now, one thing that you've got to realize is when you're doing this and trying to make another ejector, you can't really make it an interference fit, because you need to put it in and out 1,000 times while you file little bits off and try to get it to fit. It's very tedious and very painful, and I'll show you in a minute. So you really need to make it a slide fit. Obviously, not a loose slide fit, but a slide fit so you can put it in and out. So I've actually turned, well, that first one I actually turned it so it was about, because of course 1/8 of course is 0.125. It was about 0.1235 or something like that, just a thou or so undersize. So it was just a slip fit. Now I started making my second iteration, because the first one I mucked up. I'll show you why. And so I've turned that to the same size. That's that one there. So that's sort of the first, I've turned the shaft. Now this, I'll just turn the camera off for a second, I'll show you. there we go. It is actually a slide. That's a 1/8 inch drill bit. It is actually a slide with a bit of a wiggle. It actually did go all the way in, so it is a slide fit. But yeah, it's just easier to have it just slightly smaller so you can slip it in and out easily when you're mucking around. But if you look at that angle there, that's exactly measuring that with my protractor. It's exactly 45 degrees. So that's very important because you need to know that angle when you're actually manufacturing the part. So there's my first attempt at making an ejector. So you see it sitting in there, and I've got it so it's at 45 degrees. Now I was actually taking this out, hand filing it, putting it back in, and I actually made a boo-boo. You see how when you've got it in your hand, it's very hard to visualize all the angles, the angle of everything, and it was actually a bit high at the top, and I filed it, tried to just get a little bit lower, but you can see I actually filed it slightly crooked. Now I'll show you why that's a problem. Righto, now we've got the magazine in, and there's the ejector. So you can see I've got it so that the front tip of the ejector is actually below the magazine. So that's no good because the case is going to be pulled out of the chamber, and it needs to catch the front corner of that ejector in order to throw it out. So that tip, that front left-hand tip, needs to be above the magazine there. But it can't be too high for reasons I'll show you now. Here we are with the slide in place. Now at the moment it's being held back by the slide stop. Now it's a bit difficult to do one-handed. If I pull that back, so you can see the actual hole where the ejector, so that's looking straight down the hole at 45 degrees now. If you look at the front, look at this way, see that slot in the slide? Now the ejector has to fit in that. It has to be a perfect fit, so it's not dragging on the slide, which would just obviously cause all sorts of mayhem. So it needs to go back like that, but it needs to be high enough. That was my problem. I was trying to get the previous one I was making to fit perfectly in that slot because it was dragging on the top, and then I filed it a little bit too much and then made it too low. So now I have to start again. So there we go. There, as you can see, that's kind of not too bad, like as far as the shape of it goes, but yeah, but to the front of it's too low. I just didn't file it at the right angle. The other problem is, it's actually, I can't get the slide out. If I push the slide forward, it actually gets caught somewhere at the back. So even if that was working, it still wouldn't be any good. I'd still have to keep filing it smaller in order to be able to take the slide off, because you need to obviously be able to the slide needs to come over the top of that. It's binding at the back somewhere. So anyway, that one actually I made out of mild steel because I kind of was just doing it as just to see. I thought if it ended up being perfect, I'd just use some case in it and case harden it and use it. But I did learn a lot about making it from making that one. So this next one I've actually turned up from some 4140. It'll make it a bit harder to file, although maybe in a way it'll be good because it won't take off as material as quickly, and I'm most likely to muck it up like I did last time. Now that's something else I meant to show you. I'll just turn the camera off. So when you first start making you turn your shaft first, of course, get that to the right diameter, but then you have to, this angle here, obviously it's sitting like that in the pistol, so the barrel's pointed this way. Now this angle here, between horizontal and that there, is of course going to be 45 plus 90, so because you've got a 90 degree going there, so it's going to be 135 degrees. So this one I just did by eye, but at this time what I'm doing is I've made a little 135 degree template, so just to so that when I'm filing it, I can get that 135 like that. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. So this one here, I've decided, I've actually sort of had an idea, I might be able to actually use the lathe, turn the headstock on the lathe 45 degrees and actually cut this angle here at 45, which will make the whole angle 135. So, and then of course I'll just have to file it flat laterally, so that then I've got the flat bit on the end, and then so then I should have the angle, and then I have to start filing it into shape. So, so yeah, that's about all I can tell you at this point. So I've got to do all those things there. As you can imagine, the parts are so tiny, just holding them while you're filing them and stuff is quite difficult, and it's all just really tedious. But anyway, I'm going to do that. So I'll probably just do all that, and then once I've got the sides that cut it not at 45, got the sides flattened, I'll come back and show you at that point. After a lot of tedious filing and measuring and putting in the pistol and pulling it out and filing again, I've actually finished this little ejector. So I've got a pistol here, so I'll just fit the ejector to it. It takes 2 hands. Alright, there we go. I've got the slide lock back with the slide lock. You can see the ejector just poking out through the front of the breech face there. So that's obviously where it's going to be. Now if we go to this point, actually I'll just take the barrel off. There we go, you can see the ejector sitting in its little hole in the slide. So and the slide moves freely forward and backward. One problem I did have was I fitted it so it moves forward and backward, but then when I went to take off the slide, I had problems getting it off, which is obviously no good. And then another problem I had was I took the slide off and then I put the ejector on, and then I couldn't get the slide back on again. Now one thing I noticed that was causing that was just at the back of there's the slot that the ejector rides in. At the back of that slot, it was actually sort of peened and there was a little lip sticking up. I think probably when the original ejector possibly came loose, it might have actually been sitting up, or causing some problem, and the slide was hitting on it. So I just had to get a tiny round file and just take that little lip off, and that fixed the problem. So I can now just, the slide will easily go on over the ejector. So I've got the magazine in there now, so you can see the ejector sticking out of its little slot. So you can see it's just a bit higher than the magazine. There's a tiny bit of clearance, so the magazine's not being interrupted when you're pushing it in. But you obviously can't make it any higher because the slide has to ride over the top of it. So that's pretty right. So the cartridge should catch that as it comes out. Alright, so this is a bit sort of tricky, but if I pull this out, we've got a little cartridge in there. Now they tend to get caught on the actual magazine itself, but I think that caught on the ejector. Whoops. Okay, so we're still there. We haven't got to the ejector yet. So that obviously caught it and pushed it out then. Right, so let's put a few in the magazine. Here we go. There we go. Nothing wrong with that ejector. So yeah, if you decide to make your own, and you don't have a lathe, well, you know, it's just a matter probably of just getting someone to turn up that there, which literally with someone who really knows what they're doing, it take a couple of minutes. So, you know, it's about 0.3 inches diameter, this fat bit. That's about, the shaft's about, let's see how long it is, 0.35 inches. Long, about there, 0.125, 1/8, 0.125 inches approximately, maybe 1 or 2 smaller than that, but you know, just wanted a slide fit in the hole, and then just a 45 bevel there. So anyway, yeah, as I said, I'm gonna have a third go at making this, but I won't film it because it's just basically the same thing, but I'm just gonna try to make it a bit more perfect. This one would have done the job, but yeah, seeing it's sort of a friend's pistol that asked me to do it, I want to do as good a job as I can. So yeah, I have seen on the net, I've seen a few things where people on forums where people have said they lost their ejector and they just can't find one. You can't buy them, you know, no one makes them, whatever. So this hopefully if you've watched this video, it's because you've done that. So yeah, all is not lost. You can make an ejector quite effectively. So good luck with that if you're going to do it. Leave any comments if you've got any questions or anything. Push the like button if this video was helpful. And until next time, thanks for watching.